This is Mike Farrell, Rivals.com. Happy to have Manny Diaz, head coach of the U, with a tremendous recruiting class this year. And it's been an interesting recruiting year overall. I wanted to get your take. First of all, you've got some South Florida guys that were rumored to go elsewhere who ended up staying home. And a lot of people say, well, it's the pandemic and all that stuff. But you kind of turned these guys like Taylor and Williams. Can you tell me a little bit about those two guys, especially?
Yeah, number one, great talents, really special individuals, and in both cases, almost a 4-year effort in recruiting. Both young men, and no one will ever be able to fully quantify what the dead period and the impact that had on recruiting. But I think just relentless efforts from our staff, um, fostering the relationships, our on the field coaches, our recruiting staff. And then, ultimately the way that we played the majority of last fall and showing that things are building here, and this can be a place where if you do stay home, you can be developed and you can compete for great things at Miami.
Kind of a dumb question, but how important is it? You know, Miami used to own South Florida, and then in the mid 2000s, recruiting became more national, and schools started coming into South Florida more and more. Now you got to deal with everybody. How important is it to send that message to those kids to stay home?
Well, it's enormous. And a lot of times what they need to do is they need to see somebody who made that decision to stay home, to let them know it's okay to do that. And so you're always looking for guys that are trendsetters, and whether that's Leonard or James or Romello Brinson, and then we have some on our team, even, Don Chaney and Jalen Knighton a year ago, the top back in Dade and the top back in Broward. Recruiting is not like what it was, as in the 80s and 90s. It is just different. It is so much more national. The recruiting cycle, it used to be a 6-month process. It's a multi-year process. The unofficial visit has changed everything. So we have to adapt. We can't just say, well, let's just do it the way we did it back then, because the back then is not coming back.
Speaking of national, your quarterback took a little bit of a national route to Miami. So from USC commitment and California guy to Georgia briefly, how did you end up with a relationship with Jake Garcia, and how did that all play out where he wanted to be the next guy at the U?
Well, same thing. We stayed on Jake, for the better part of over 2 years, and he was committed to SC. And when he made that choice, we said, Jake, we're going to be here for you. Just let us know if something happens. And, they ended up taking another quarterback, and it's tough sometimes to have two guys in a class. But Jake's story of what he had to do in 2020 is really remarkable. It's just crazy to think you have a whole state that was denied the ability to play high school football this year, not right, wrong, or indifferent. And so for Jake to end up in Georgia and have to end up at two programs, and not just two run-of-the-mill programs. I mean, two of the more dominant programs in Georgia high school football, outstanding talent, great coaches, and his ability to play quarterback at those schools. I mean, to be able to walk in and garner the respect of the football team to take the starting quarterback position says a lot about Jake, his adaptability, his leadership skills, and his ability to get everybody in the locker room connected, which is so important at the quarterback position.
What was the biggest positional need, you think, in this class?
Well, it was very important that we signed a quarterback. We really love Tyler Van Dyke from last year, and to be able to have some competition with those guys when Derek leaves. But we still felt like just across the board, there wasn't a position that we didn't think that we had to sign special players. We're very excited about our wide receiver room. Brashard Smith, I mentioned Romello Brinson, Jacoby George, all Dade and Broward County prospects. That what we're doing in a spread offense and having the ability to either make guys, blowing by the coverage or taking a short one like Brashard's skill set and turning into a long one and becoming more explosive in our passing game. I thought that was a key for us.
And you have no idea how excited I am to see that indoor practice facility behind you, because I haven't been to the U in a few years, but every year I went down there, and every time I hear people saying, why can't Miami be what they were in the Big East? People talk to facilities. Can you speak to the facility changes that have been occurring over the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's remarkable. We actually have, we have some stuff that's, for recruits to look at that recruits haven't even seen because, it hasn't even gone online until we got into the dead period. But this school, our administration has done a great job. And this really goes back to Mark Richt. I mean, what's behind me is Coach Richt deserves the credit for that because he's the one that really got things stirred in the right direction to, Miami had been behind quite honestly. And for a long time, that didn't really matter. Again, as I mentioned, kids weren't seeing the rest of the world. And now they are exposed to the facilities and what looks shiny for 48 hours might be what sways them to make a decision. And so it was important that we can't just rely on the fact that it's a beautiful day and it's going to be 70 degrees in January or February outside of our window. It's nice that we're in paradise, but we also have to show the commitment to the young men, and I think that's we've been able to do with the facility upgrade.
And I'm asking every coach I speak to today, dozens of you guys, how does the transfer portal affect how you go about recruiting and roster management now?
Yeah, we brought in 3 transfers this year. We want to be a developmental program. I mean, we want to recruit high school players primarily. But the portal exists now to help complement your roster, perhaps somewhere, certainly when I became the head coach a couple of years ago, we had some holes in our roster. We had to go fill some gaps. But it's going to be fascinating to see, in the next few years, because as the portal becomes more of a thing and as more players leave, you may have unintended, holes on your roster, where you're not, you don't have an older guy to set the tone, and you can't really predict that. So I think it'll be available for schools if they feel the need to. We had a need this year. We lost our top 3 defensive ends off of last year's team. We had a need in the secondary. We had a need, I mentioned, a wide receiver to get explosive, and for us to be able to get 3 players from major college programs that have played in big games to come to Miami is a great thing for us. And it's been good to also get these players in our program who can tell the high school recruits, say, look, I've listened to the same recruiting spiel. I fell for the 48-hour weekend. Look, Miami is really a great place to be, and our transfers have done well when they've come here.
And I guess last thing, what would be the pitch? I know kids are going to get back on campus, knock on wood, after April 15th, and you got Eric King coming back. There's a lot of momentum at Miami, but what's the pitch? For these kids that are coming off of visits to schools that have won national championships in the last couple of years, or putting, 10 guys in the first round of the NFL draft. I mean, what's the pitch that you give them to make Miami, I got a Baltimore Ravens helmet back there with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis signed. Legendary Miami. What's the pitch you give to them?
Well, Miami is a school where you have the opportunity to build that, and the evidence of the past shows that. You mentioned when Ed was here, it's great to have Ed Reed walking our halls. The young men can talk to him personally, but there are only so many schools where you can build that type of monster, that type of dynasty, that where you have the multiple first round picks and winning the multiple championships. Based off historical evidence, Miami is one of those programs, and so if you have the type of mindset where you want to go be a part of building something and really creating a legacy of enjoying the process of piecing it together, and obviously we get to live in a pretty special place, and then I think Miami can be for you. And I've been on both sides of it. I was very fortunate when I got into coaching. It was the late 90s at Florida State, and we had that recruiting spiel. Hey, listen, if you want to be great and win championships, we're winning 10, 11 games every year, and we're in the top 4 every year. So I've seen recruiting from, when you are on top, and then the recruiting when you're trying to get there. And there's somewhere for everybody, because no matter how dominant you are, there's more great players than one program can take. And that's what's been special about our team. And the fact that so many of our players, we as you mentioned, we signed a great recruiting class, but also so many of our players came back. Means people are choosing Miami. People want to come to Miami. We've added some great coaches, not just as coaches, but as recruiters. And ultimately, that's how you build a great program, is you add great people that want to come. So that if we can continue the momentum of having these great people keep choosing Miami, that's going to make a direct impact on how we play on Saturdays in the fall.
All right. Well, follow along for more Kane's information at canesport.com, rivals.com. Coach Diaz, I really appreciate your time. It is 10 degrees up here and 14 inches of snow in Connecticut. So you are in paradise, and I think that's a great selling point. Thanks.
It actually dipped into the high 40s, and I think the schools went on a 2-hour delay, because no one knew what to do when the low was 49. So pray for us. Pray for us here down here in Miami. Hashtag.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a few prayers for you guys to get through that 40-degree weather. Thanks very much. All right, Coach. Thanks a lot.
Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.